Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We are here live from the Chantilly, Virginia, United States of America studios at Kardec Radio. And today is a most special day because we have here with us our renowned researcher, friend, teacher. He is the leader of a new movement around the world, I would say this way, Dr. Stephen Post. He's here with us to talk about religious freedom for youth and much, much more. It's a new initiative from his institute, the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. You can go to the website unlimitedloveinstitute.org and get to know more information. A year ago, Dr. Post began a new initiative for youth around the world. As you can tell, dear listener, we are in a very peculiar time on the earth in which especially young adults are taking extreme actions, from suicide bombers to mass shooters around the world. Everywhere you go, there is a new challenge that is fostered by young adults. Yes, it's a reality. Why is this happening? What can we do? Majority of the problems are said to be religiously caused. We are questioning it. Is it really religiously caused? Or what is the root cause of it all? We need to know. What can we do? What about religious differences? In the United States alone, very recently, political candidates are proposing screening for Muslims. They are proposing these religious dissensions and intolerance. What can you do? What can we do? Can we do anything at all? Well, Dr. Post is already doing something, and you can join him. He's going to be talking to us in a very few minutes. Meanwhile, I'd like to take your attention to the Institute and his works at unlimitedloveinstitute.org. If you want to know more about him, you just go to stephen.g.post.com and get to know more information about his books, his works. You know, Dr. Stephen Post is amazing. He wrote so many books that are so influential in our humanity. He's an international speaker, a best-selling author, and the director for the Center for Medical Humanities, Compassionate Care, and Bioethics at Stony Brook University. He has been quoted in more than 3,000 national and international newspapers and magazines, and has been interviewed on major broadcasts, including the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Parade Magazine, U.S. News and World Report, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, etc., etc., etc. And he has been writing books that are very transformative and very enlightening as well. And like books, Why Good Things Happen to Good People, How to Live a longer, happier, healthier life by the simple act of giving. And as a professor of preventive medicine and bioethics at Stony Brook University, he's really making a difference there. And now, as the president of the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, he's really taking a new and I would say revolutionary step towards our youth. And you'll be able to talk to him, and you can call him and talk to him if you want at 858-769-4705, or send us your email or a message at cardiacradio@gmail.com or at Cardiac Radio's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Cardiac Radio. And we'll be happy to listen from you and know more information about what is happening at your end, since Cardiac Radio is in more than 100 countries. If you're going to listen to this, or you're listening now after the program, because our programs are stay on demand for years to come, you can also send us your question to cardiacradio.com. We have a contact form, and we will be happy to address your question and even forward it to Dr. Post. Since we're talking about our connection with our source, God, religiousness, spirituality, freedom to cherish our spirituality, being young and focused, and love, we're going to kickstart the program, setting up the tone with a most beautiful message that was published through the mediumistic hands of Chico Xavier in a book and CD, Enlightening Messages, which you can find at the website of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, ssbaltimore.org. It's called, the message title is Omnipotent Love. Let us cherish it, and soon after it, Dr. Stephen Post with us.
Omnipotent Love. At the distressful time of crisis in which circumstances took your soul into trial, many believed that you would no longer rise. However, when shadows thickened around you, you found the blinding light, which impelled you toward the path of hope bathed in sunlight. In the cell of disease, many admitted that nothing was left for you but to accept the scythe of death. However, at the extreme moments, intangible hands caressed the exhausted body, renewing its warmth, so that you would not leave incomplete the service that marks your presence on earth. In the midst of temptation, many agreed that decadence was all that was left for you. However, at the edge of the muddy cliff where you were, an invisible arm manifested itself, deterring you. In the valley in which you threw yourself without thinking, many despised you for good. Nevertheless, at the threshold of madness, you received inner support that guarded your heart, reconstructing your life. In the hut of loneliness, in which the most cherished relatives relegated you, many believed you to be forlorn. But at the end of your weeping, which appeared to be endless for you, you experienced an unexplainable uplift that encouraged you to seek new bonds which honored you. While in the midst of turmoil that envelops you during the day, think about God, the omnipotent love, which does not forsake us. No matter how great the affliction, He will bring a balm that consoles. No matter how obscure the problem, He will give a fair and correct solution. Even so, do not hasten in personifying or defining Him. The word of Christ is enough for us. He who revealed God is our Father. Above all, do not bother if someone denies God's existence, even if their words shine in the world, because you will find God within your heart in moments of pain. It is natural that it be like that. It is when the night comes that the eyes of humanity can devise the splendor of the stars.
Yeah, that's the power of the omnipotent love. But, it seems like many people are unaware of it. And we're mixing up something very unique is happening on humanity. We want to know more and how we can actually help the new generation stay on track or get back to track if needed, and keep co-creating with God a world that is more and more loving. And we have here with us Dr. Stephen Post. Dr. Post has been the leading force of a new movement, I would say this way, to help youth around the world, especially in regards to the awareness, to the raising awareness of religious freedom. Thank you so much, Dr. Post, for taking your time during this weekend to be with us at Kardec Radio once again. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, and I'm always happy to be speaking with the remarkable Vanessa, who does so much for the world. I feel always very comfortable in our conversations, and I thank you for them.
Oh, Dr. Post, you're amazing. Your generosity really inspires us. And Dr. Post, you know, in a way, the hearts of many people around the world as we speak are really sad. Everywhere in the world, we're being challenged by extreme actions like suicide bombers and mass killings, like in Nice recently, currently in Turkey, so many parts of the world. And we see that on the behind the scenes of it all, there's always a young adult, if not even a teenager, or even sometimes a child. What are your thoughts in regards to these events that are happening around the world?
Well, you know, it's important to note that many religious traditions, not all, but many, have passages in their sacred scriptures that do, in fact, talk about violence and even to some degree persecution of those who believe differently. But those are, for the most part, very ancient statements, and they're always much overshadowed by the message of love, of unbounded, unlimited love that inspired the founders of these traditions. The Quran is filled with verses about tolerance, about freedom of conscience, about love for all humanity, about love for the stranger. So also is the Hebrew Bible. So what we've seen, though, is that of the 1.6 billion Muslims on the face of the earth, about 0.01%, that's not a big fraction, 0.01%, 0.1%, have been affected by this very destructive ideology of extremism that really emphasizes only those old passages of destruction, and all the thoughtful reformist Muslims in the world want to overshadow those negative verses with the positive ones, because they're realizing that we're on the verge of a great new human future with progress and spirituality and social progress and prosperity for everybody without exception. But this is a problem because of this very young audience of 0.01% of Muslims are being taught from a very young age this very destructive and negative misinterpretation and distortion of the Quran. So this is the problem that we face, and ultimately it is a spiritual and an educational problem that needs to be addressed worldwide, but that especially needs to be addressed in the Middle East itself by all the leaders and spiritual authorities. One of them is my friend Prince Ghazi, who works in Jordan. He's the cousin of King Mohammed. He has a book called Love in the Quran. He's a Princeton graduate. It's been downloaded 5 million times from his website across the Middle East. And it talks about the Sufi tradition of unconditional love for all people, nonviolence, and claims that that's really the core, the essence of the true Quran and of the true Islamic tradition. So we need to work very hard educationally so that we can solve a lot of these problems without having to resort to some very difficult military activities.
So, but Dr. Post, if some people ask, has these religious differences and the intolerance, the clashes between religions have existed since ancient times, but it seems like it's coming back with greater strength in the current times. Why do you think it's happening that way?
I think it's obscuring the reality. The reality is that people from literally every tradition are seeing a great, bright new horizon of love for shared humanity, love for nature, for the planet Earth. It's astonishing to see the spiritual creativity, the coming together. The problem right now just happens to be that we have a very extreme form that is called Islamicism. It's really not Islam. Islam is filled with people who advocate for peace and humanity and love. It's just this very small group that has been radicalized, and we need to solve that problem. I'm convinced that we can use this opportunity, all traditions can use this opportunity, trouble is opportunity, to totally emphasize the progressive, spiritually deep, love-centered teachings of all of these sacred scriptures and traditions, and that we will move into a great new future. But right now there is an obstacle. It's a very violent, a very disturbing obstacle. We saw it in Nice 2 days ago. We've seen it in San Bernardino. We've seen it in all different places of the world. But we're going to get through this because it's just the opportunity for everybody, for the 99.999% of humanity who believe in divine love and a shared humanity. We're going to get the victory over this, and I'm not at all worried about it. I just think it's a terrible thing, but sometimes you have to go through darkness before you get to the light.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But you haven't stopped at simply analyzing the events. You started taking action last year. So can you tell the listener, please, Dr. Post, what was the turning point for you to decide to take action regarding, something tangent to disseminating religious freedom?
Yeah, well, it's really simple. I was up in Westchester County, north of New York City, doing a little talk on a beautiful window by the artist Marc Chagall. It's called the Good Samaritan Window, and it has symbols from all the religious traditions, focusing in on the potential of love, a spiritually informed love for all humanity without a single exception. And I got home that night, it was pretty late, about 11 o'clock, and a woman from Lahore, Pakistan, who's an advisor to the Institute, had emailed me and said, you better look at the website. So I went to www.unlimitedloveinstitute.org, and there was the ISIS flag. And we had been hacked by Team DZ ISIS. This is November 10th, 2014. And I realized that even though our institute, which was not a big enterprise, it was, somewhat known but not widely known, just because it focused on love for all people without exception, not just people who believe like I believe or anyone else believes, but all people, that it had attracted the attention and the ire of ISIS. So my response was not to get upset. I wasn't upset terribly. I mean, we had to rebuild the website and put in some extra protection, and now it's better than ever because trouble is always opportunity. But I figured, why don't we have an international essay contest and invite young people from all over the world to submit essays about freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, why it's important, about also how they, in their own experiences, might have responded to anybody they know who was actually encouraging them to hate other people just because they didn't share their beliefs. So we got hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of responses, and we had a wonderful group that analyzed these responses, a team of international judges, including you. Thank you. And we're now having, and we gave out awards of $1,000 and $500 in each of 3 age categories, 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 through 21. And we're having a conference in August at the United Nations with the winners, and it should be very exciting. I think we'll probably do a collected, edited book of these essays with Random House if we're lucky. We'll get it all online with the Institute. So it's all coming together, and then I think we'll keep doing this repeatedly, at least every 2 years, and until we've made real progress. Because the issue is how do we free young minds, young impressionable minds, people who are really not that familiar with the beauty of the Islamic tradition, with all of its appeal to love and harmony and even nonviolence in extraordinarily spiritual depth. How do we bring them to a knowledge of that part of the tradition so that then they can judge for themselves and not be, if you will, brainwashed into this incredibly violent negativism?
Exactly. But do you agree, Dr. Post, that, one day I was reading a book by Leon Denis, and he says, the problems of the world are in bad parenting. Do you think that would probably pertain? Because I was talking to a friend yesterday, and this friend said, the problem is that some of these parents are fostering these extremist ideas in this young generation. Would you agree?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear what you first said.
We're saying that I read in a book recently that the problems of the world are based on bad parenting. And yesterday I was talking to a friend about it, and she said, in a way it is true, because many of these terrorists, they are actually, fed with these ideas of extremism by their own parents.
Absolutely. If you look at the backgrounds of many of these individuals, with some exceptions, they come from difficult family backgrounds. And in fact, it is true that in the Middle East, many of these young kids are taught by their parents to hate Jews, to hate Christians, to hate Muslims. The hatred is pretty much a part of their mindset by age 4 or 5. It can be overcome, and it is overcome, and people grow out of it. Although a certain percentage of these kids are really so locked into this kind of thinking that they're capable of some really nefarious and horrible actions. But definitely, parents have to take responsibility. We have to be role models. We have to involve our children in interfaith, interspiritual activities and communities. And there are a lot of these across the Middle East, and they are beacons of light. We just need to focus on them, and we need to make them part of everybody's curriculum. They need to be part of the educational system. We need to, in our schools, have people from all these different traditions talk about how they articulate and live by the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and how they are tolerant and how they draw from their traditions in that direction. And so that people are inoculated. It's like they have to be given a vaccine against these very narrow doctrines that only emphasize those obscure old passages here and there to be found in most ancient scriptures that emphasize hatred and fear and hostility, mainly with the goal of terrorizing innocent people, striking terror into the hearts of quote-unquote non-believers. But we need to work very hard with the schools and with kids but across the culture. It's educational. We're not going to solve this problem, with military and other kinds of activities. They may be a temporary stopgap, but in the end, you have to realize that all these young people who see all the violence, they in fact become even more susceptible to this negative, distorted teaching that is around them.
Wow. It's a lot of work, and I know the Institute for Research in Unlimited Love launched an initiative as a beginning step towards something that is growing as we speak. Can you tell us more about the Youth Essay Prize contest and what's going to happen next, Dr. Post?
Well, I can. I mean, the essays were great. They came in from, it's interesting. There was. I'll tell you, Vanessa. There was one essay from a young lady at a school in Pakistan who was only 12 years old. She talked about how she had resisted peer pressures from some of her friends in the direction of hating non-Muslims. She wrote a beautiful essay about what she appealed to. This is a 12-year-old girl, the Quran in the great traditions of Islam, and how she pushed back against this and actually convinced her friends that she was correct. So she was great. The only thing is, and we gave her a prize, we gave her an award, first place in her age group, but I communicated with her and her parents and her school, and they didn't want us to publicize her name or even put her essay up on our website, let alone invite her to a meeting in New York, because they were worried that she would be endangered in Pakistan, because that can be a real serious issue. So that was beautiful, though, and I think she has a tremendous future. It was impressive to see that a young girl, just 12 years old, could be thinking so deeply about unlimited love for all humanity and not getting caught up in this kind of negative thinking.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. We still live in a world that is so confusing to many people who are already used to freedom, and it's really sad to know that we cannot freely express our ideas. Otherwise,
well, absolutely, and the freedom of expression, spiritual and religious expression, is how we get to know each other. Because whatever the neo-atheists say, and they have their following, the bottom line is that about 95% of the people on the face of the earth believe in some kind of higher power, whatever they call it, an infinite mind, a supreme being, ultimate reality, God, call it what you will. But the bottom line is that we need to move in that direction, and we need to be free in our ability in schools and in public to express the beauty of our traditions and how they focus us in very unique ways, wonderfully unique and special ways, with all these kinds of cultural variations and differences, but they still point us in the direction of unlimited love, because that's the source of it all. And the problem sometimes is that we worship the symbols of our traditions and we forget about the source that inspired the great founders of our traditions, including individuals like Kardec, by the way. So I'm very optimistic, but I think we need more freedom and not less freedom to express these things so that we can educate one another about the beauty of our different traditions and religious faiths, and that way we can overcome the violence. How can we dehumanize and depersonalize and demonize and attack people when we learn more about them and we learn about the beauty of what they're thinking and feeling and saying spiritually and ethically and morally?
Correct. But Dr. Post, you are an educator, first and foremost, And people learn through effort and repetition. Effort and repetition, which means we need a systematic way of getting people in the mindset of, you know, of the things that we want them to be working upon. So when we talk about a new generation, we're talking also about creating awareness regarding their parents, right? Parents
Yes.
and communities, etc. So I would like to read the questions that the Institute offered to those who participated in the contest as guidelines for their essays. Let me just read them through, and we'll ask the listener to visualize the scenarios as well and think about what would you do as well. For example, if you were able to speak to a fellow young person in your own religion who advocated religious hatred, how would you engage him or her? What would motivate you to do so? What would you say, and how would you steer him on or her to unlimited love? Another question. If you were confronted with religious hatred from a fellow young person in a different religion, how would you respond and why? Can religious arrogance and hatred be replaced by a spirituality of tolerance, equal respect, freedom, mutual appreciation, and love? How might the spiritual principle of unlimited love be lived out and achieved in practice? Can it be shared and promoted within religious communities or even between different religious communities? Could a religious toleration youth movement be developed across all religions worldwide? What tools might make this possible that were not available in the past? And finally, what beliefs and practices in your own religious tradition, if you have one, can point youth in the direction of freedom, tolerance, and unlimited love? What positive role models exemplify the power of love in your tradition today, and what can we learn from them? These are amazing questions, Dr. Post, that really make not only youth think about it, but I think it's a proposal for adults in general, including parents, because it begins, we could say, these extremist ideas begin at home and they spread out. So, Dr. Post, when I was reading your question, a visual scenario came to my mind. I recall when I was reading this book, Paul and Stephen, by Chico Xavier. It was a mediumistic book talking about the first Christians, and it reports what we know about how the followers of Jesus' teachings were treated. They were treated as if they were revolutionaries. They were creating disturbances. They need to be, persecuted and punished, etc., etc. So when I currently hear the portray of Muslims around the world as people who are troubled, etc., I have a feeling, and it amazes me that many people who are promoting this religious hatred call themselves Christians. And I just recall when Christians themselves historically were persecuted for being Christians and were taken by as dangerous people. What are your thoughts regarding that as well?
Well, every sacred tradition unfortunately gets caught up at times in this viciousness. There was a young man 2 summers ago who he was white, he was Christian, He walked into an African-American Methodist Episcopal church in Charleston, South Carolina, and he killed almost a dozen wonderful African-Americans who were great spiritual people worshiping deeply in the love of God. He actually shot them at the end of their prayer service. We can think about every tradition. A wonderful man like Rabin, who was the head of Israel, who loved Christians and Muslims and Jews and everybody. He was killed by a radical Jew. We can think about Mrs. Bhutta. We can think about Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. A lot of times people who get to the point where they really are making a difference and pushing us toward a spiritual sense of a shared humanity and of the immensity of God's unconditional love, they are a threat to people who love only some little fragment of humanity. And therefore, they, as Gandhi said, you need to have courage. And all people who affirm, as I believe the Spiritist societies do, love for all people without exception, I think that you have to always expect some degree of hardship, some degree of misunderstanding. It just comes with the territory. You're not looking for it. You're not looking for those kinds of challenges, but the reality is that they tend to find you one way or another. And so I think that the
Yes, Dr. Post. Are you there with us? Hello, Dr. Post. Dear listener, it seems that we may have lost Dr. Post, but we're going to get him back. Meanwhile, I'd like you to listen to a recording that was put together, voiceover of a passage that talks about religious differences. It's named Victorious Faith. It's in the book Jesus in the Home by the Spirit author Leah Lucio through the hymns of the medium Chico Xavier. You can buy this book at edisonofamerica.com. Listen to this beautiful voiceover that was recorded and produced by Mark Smith and Carol Correa, who are the hosts of Cardiac Radio for Kids, and they co-host with Bia Lopez, Cardiac Radio for Teens. Let's listen to this. Meanwhile, we're going to get Dr. Post back here with us.
And now a message from Jesus in the Home, number 32, Victorious Faith.
Andrew was pointing out certain difficulties involved in spreading the new redemptive principles of which the Master was a messenger. Making reference to the Pharisees with a passionate bitterness, he urged his fellow disciples to form an organized resistance movement. Jesus, however, had been listening with imperturbable tolerance to the angry discussion, and as soon as he got everyone quieted down, he asserted,
"No school of religion will triumph with the Father if it is devoid of love, which is our responsibility to cultivate towards one another."
And perhaps because a justified expectation was expressed regarding the moral teaching that his divine words of wisdom could weave, he began very calmly.
In the times of early faith, 3 primitive men settled with their families in a large forest, and after having lived in fraternal harmony for a time, they began to argue about the nature of the Creator. One of them insisted that the Almighty lived in the thunder. Another believed that the Father resided in the wind, and the third that he lived in the sun. All 3 of them felt they were his sons, but they wanted at all costs to stick to their own individual opinions. After harsh verbal altercations, they turned to fighting openly. One of the 3 was armed with a large supply of ore, another with a great pile of stones, and the third had hidden behind a pile of wood. Thus, pieces of firewood and crude stones were the weapons that they would use in the great conflict. All of them invoked the protection of the Supreme Lord for their families, and then they threw themselves into the fray. The conflict escalated to the point that they went throughout the forest, harming both trees and animals, until the all-compassionate one sent them a friendly angel. The messenger visited their forts in the guise of an ordinary man, and instead of taking away the tools with which they were destroying living things, he told them that all three of their traditions were invaluable in their own way. He told them that they only needed to take a new approach. He explained that all three were right in the belief that nourished their souls, because God lives in the sun that sustains his creatures, in the wind that helps nature, and in the thunder that renews the atmosphere. And with a lot of patience, he explained that the Creator can only be honored by means of dignified and profitable work, by teaching the first one to transform the hard pieces of ore into tools with which to till the earth during the planting season. The second one by converting his wood into valuable pieces for well-being. The third by using his stones to build comfortable shelters. To everything was to be added the good doctrine of working for everyone's progress and evolution. The three contenders thus understood the greatness of victorious faith through constructive acts, and the discord ended for good.
The master made a short pause and added,
In matters of religion, all believers have respectable reasons for holding to it, and they have invaluable abilities that should be made use of to enhance life and time, thereby glorifying the Father. But when people hold on to heaven's blessings and do nothing for others or themselves, they are like a miser who dives headlong into the hell of thirst and hunger in order to wrongly hide the wealth that God has loaned him. For this very reason, faith that does not help, teach, or console is no more than dark vanity of the heart.
A heavy silence fell over everyone, and Andrew lowered his timid eyes in order to better grasp the enlightening message.
Yes, dear listeners, here we are. This is the message, Victorious Faith, which you can find in the book Jesus in the Home. It talks precisely about what we're discussing here. Religious agreeability and tolerance and freedom. It's beyond tolerance because it's not about putting up with anybody's beliefs, but really respecting. But this is about deep awareness. It's about consciousness. And as we said before, we really need to work upon it. Some people are seeing the current events as if maybe tomorrow everything is going to disappear. Like in a snap, without any effort. Unfortunately, what we're seeing around the world are things that need not only healing, but they need prevention. And Dr. Stephen Post, from the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, has taken the lead on raising awareness on the importance of religious freedom for youth. We're talking about creating a new mindset in the world that shall last for generations to come. It's not about the current times only. It's about promoting this awareness and make it everlasting. Dr. Post, so what are the plans? You have the essays. I know beautiful essays were written, different age groups from preteens to teenagers and young adults. And now there's going to be an event at the United Nations as the first conference related to the contest in which prizes are going to be given and much more. Can you tell us a little bit more about the conference?
Well, the conference will be very exciting. We have introductory talks by the great pastor Otis Moss, who actually did the commemoration at that African American Methodist Church in Charleston 2 years ago, one of the most famous African American ministers in the country. And then we have the leader of Women in Islam, who is going to speak deeply about the situation of women and how we can work to be inclusive of women in all religions and spiritualities. She will be brilliant. And then we simply begin with the younger age kids. We work all the way through to a young man named Sun Surya, who has a powerful, riveting essay. We'll have some interludes by UN leadership speaking about how important this kind of essay exercise could be if it could just spread to all nations across the world. We're going to have a wrap-up, and of course, before we just turn people out to the streets of New York, we have a famous violinist friend of mine who is one of the foremost violinists in the world, and she will be playing a meditational piece for about 4 or 5 minutes, because we're going to hear a lot. You know, these young people aren't just reading their essays, they're performing them in a sense and really giving their heart and soul to it. We want this all to be, of course, webcast on systems, so it will go all over the world and hopefully be in every classroom and every age range globally. And we want them, though, to have a few minutes just to kind of process all that they've heard over these 2 hours, to process it all with the beauty of some spiritual music played by Joanna, my violinist friend. So it should be a great event, and then we'll also look forward to future years and begin to organize very carefully to keep this going, because ultimately, when you get right down to it, you know, as you know, it's parents, it's spiritual education, it's how we're presenting our traditions and what we're emphasizing and what we're de-emphasizing. That's the kind of thing that we need to focus in, and we need to draw on the young people and on their experience. Let them speak from their hearts and their experience about how they have had to grapple with this kind of problem.
So let me ask you this question. So do you think that, I know this is the first conference on the topic, so what are the other things you expect? Do you think the youth there present may potentially get together and really start a movement by themselves as well?
Well, that's what I'm going to facilitate. I'm figuring out how to do that with them right now. But I'll tell you, the excitement is there, and I think we, with the right publicity and the right resources and the right commitments, I think we can actually create a transformative movement that will put an end to religious hatred. You know, that's a big task, and obviously will take some time. But I think in the end, like I always say, trouble is opportunity, and we have a chance for good, I think, forever and ever, to move people away from these teachings of hatred and violence and religious bigotry and coercion and murder and brutality. We have a chance, now that we've seen how horrifying it is, we have a chance to move beyond it for good, and I think we will do it.
Will also the winning essays become like a book?
Yeah, we're gonna publish them in a collected book and have a good introduction. I'm still working on that with publishers, so I don't have the details, but we'll certainly put them online at the UnlimitedLoveInstitute.org and develop that page. I've been a little hesitant to put a lot on that page until we actually have the event. But certainly as of the middle of August, we'll begin to fill that up and really feature it and get the word out on our newsletters and make it really happen.
So it's interesting because the people who are listening to us may be asking how they can also partake independent of their age group. Sometimes they are adults who don't necessarily have children at this age group. How can people around the world who are listening to us support this initiative and the steps that are coming along as well? Is there anything that they can do or you would recommend that they start doing as well?
Well, there sure is. They can go to the website and you can sign up for the newsletter. It's very easy. You just need to give your email. We don't even need a name or address, just your email. And we will be sending out announcements for future competitions. We also have a Facebook address at Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. We're going to be communicating a lot about these events in the future. Right now, it's a little more focus on just, the short term and what's going to be going on in a month in New York. But after that, I'm going to take a couple of days off and then start focusing in on movement building. I think we can be successful. I think the nice thing about the language of unlimited love is that, it's not specific to any tradition. It's just at the essence of every tradition, but it's not specific to any particular tradition. So everybody can embrace it. And there's no idea here of sort of, of overlooking the differences, the wonderful differences between these different traditions and these systems of culture and spirituality. It's just to bring everything into its true focus, which really is about love, and that's what God is. I as you know, a firm believer that even underlying all of reality, all the universe that we live in, the mathematical principles, the thermodynamic constants, the whole universe that you see when you look up into the sky, I think everything reflects the glory of God's love. And if we can move into that period, then we will have the greatest prosperity, because it's the religious hatred that's holding us back. That's the great obstacle right now. And once we get beyond that, I think we're home free.
You're right. And I also call the attention to the public that the recent issue of the Spiritist magazine was fully dedicated to youth, majority of it at least. And Dr. Post has an article there that talks about the Institute and one of their tenants. And it talks about the contest, it talks about the conference that is coming up. So all the information is at thespiritistmagazine.com. Remember, we have a free app which you can open in your smartphone, whatever it is, iPhone, Android, and you can read the full magazine. And if you want the printout, you just go to the website, spiritistmagazine.com, and you order your printed copy in the link that is right there for you. And it's all about youth working for the good. Paul the Apostle once said to John Mark when he was quite young, working for the good is a wall of defense against temptation. Sometimes, in this world, it's all we need, working for the good. And Dr. Post is the expert in the field about how much volunteering, working for the good, and promoting good things for others can really be beneficial to you, to every one of us. So, Dr. Post, as a final remark for everyone who is listening to us, a listener recently didn't want to call in but sent us a message in our Facebook message page, and it asked, is there hope for what's happening around the world? Can we really change it?
We really can change it. We have to remember that it's just a few people who have been taught distorted things who are making these events happen. And we can work against it. We can solve this problem. There's definitely a better human future, and it will be an opportunity for all people to come together to confront spiritually a common threat. I believe this is a stairway to heaven on earth in a way, even though it looks very bleak. I'm not at all pessimistic about it. I'm very sad that we are, to some degree, living in terror, and that we have all the kinds of problems that we're having, and people's lives are being torn apart. It's a very tragic period, but it's also a time where we can grow because we see the problem more clearly than we ever have. And we also know that with technologies of destruction and also just simple things that in the hands of a very determined, hurtful individual can do immense damage. We know the stakes are high, and I think we can overcome it if we really make the concerted effort. It's one reason the UN is important. The UN has been pretty much tone deaf to spirituality and religion, as if you could solve the world's problems on a purely secular paradigm and people have to leave all of that behind. No, the thing is to embrace what people are in the particularity of their sacred traditions and bring out the best in those traditions and have that circumnavigating the globe.
That's right. You're so right, and we're really proud of you for so much you're doing and really creating a new pathway that is non-existent in our world to the extent that you're doing. And we're
Vanessa, you and the Spiritists are right on board with this. I love you, Spiritists. I love you. I love all the writings. I think it's a great tradition, and it's an honor to be inspired by it myself.
Thank you so much. You know, Allan Kardec certainly is in that mindset, and we're hoping to be, attentive to the call and do our share as well. So we'll be there to support you. And we know Bia Lopes, who is the current host of Kardec Radio for Teens every Tuesday at 6 p.m. She couldn't be here with us today, but we know she's going to be there reading her own essay as she participated in the contest. And we thank you so much for opening this opportunity for all of us to participate in this unique first conference of the Religious Freedom for Youth. And you can count on us again and again, Dr. Post, because we know the work is just beginning. There's so much ahead of us, but it's worthwhile.
It certainly is, and thank you. And I'm going to see you in a few weeks, young lady.
Yeah, God permitting, we'll be there for sure, Dr. Post. And, you know, we, in the name of Kardec Radio and the listeners, would like to give a big hug of gratitude for everything you're doing, and also for being with us at Kardec Radio today and this morning, taking your time off to, participate here and giving us new hope that we can not only see a different world, but we can also actively partake in this transformation. Thank you, Dr. Post.
Absolutely. It's an honor. God bless.
Thank you. So, dear listener, you heard Dr. Post, and this is just the beginning. Wherever you are in this world, remember, there is a lot of had to be done. And, I see people on Facebook posting like, oh, I'm so sad. I understand we share feelings, and it's important to acknowledge our emotions. But on the same token, it's not enough. We need to go ahead. How so? Do you talk to people from different religions? Do you have friends of different religions? Do you have colleagues of different religions? Do you get along with them? Do you disseminate concordance and peace and tolerance and freedom of religion? Because if deep in our homes and inside of us we're still thinking against and are doubting that the basis of all religions are love, we are the first ones who need to work upon it. So, dear listener, wherever you are in the world right now, either listening to us live or on demand, think about what you could do. Sometimes as simple as a post on your Facebook page, on your social networks, can be Twitter, anything, an email, a phone call, but fostering this mentality of religious freedom. Believe in it. If you don't know what these other religions are all about, read about them, visit them, and you'll be surprised that at the end of it all, it's all about love. You know, it pays off to not only believe, but to know that love is all that is. How about if we, wrap up the program now with our final prayer? Our final prayer in the name of religious peace and freedom in our world. Dear God, please grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking as He did this world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that You make all things right as long as I surrender to Your love. And may I be reasonably happy in this life and help others always. In this Trinity prayer, dear listeners, we invite you to this serenity, courage, and wisdom, these pillars of a new life. We would like that everyone who is listening to this program, live or on demand, feel a loving embrace, encouraging them to their loving and divine nature. May everyone in the world, as we speak, feel renewed, trusting in You, dear God, trusting us in Their divine nature, today and always, and so be it. Thank you so much, dear listener. Tomorrow, Brian Foster is going to have another program at 7 p.m. If you go to his Facebook page, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us, he is talking about the very program he's going to talk about tomorrow, how the spirit world guides the destiny of the earth. Listen to it, participate, just calling in at 858-769-4705. And, every day we have new programs at Kardec Radio. Monday, Kardec Radio for Kids. Tuesday, Kardec Radio for Teens. Wednesday, The Messengers by Andrea Lewis. Thursday, Spiritist Talk. And Friday, Spiritist Awareness. Saturday, Health and Spirituality. And Sunday, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. And starting this week, the U.S. Medical Spiritist Association is streaming some of the talks they've had in previous years. Since this year, in October, they are promoting and organizing their conference at Georgetown University. Go to the website sma-us.org and get to know more information for the registration. And also starting in September, Josara Korngold is hosting a new program at Kardec Radio, very unique, every Friday starting September, which is about mediumship in the air with Josara Korngold, who is the president of the United States Spiritist Council. This and much more here at Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio is expanding as we speak because it's the work of God, and you can participate and join us if you want to. Just send us a message at kardecradio.com in our contact form, and we'll be happy to have you on board as well. Meanwhile, we wish you lots of blessings, and remember, suffering doesn't go on vacation, so don't take a summer vacation forgetting about others who are suffering. Think about them as well and do your part. Many, many, many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.